What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mind Pump TV. It's me, Sal, your favorite host. All right, let's talk about food intolerances. What does that mean? You've probably heard maybe us talk about it on Mind Pump, but maybe you've heard other influencers, I hate that term, people in the fitness and health space talk about food intolerances. What does that mean? All right, first off, an intolerance is different than an allergy. A food allergy, if you have a food allergy, you probably know. This is where you eat a food and you get an immediate allergic reaction like a rash or worse, anaphylactic shock. So we're not talking about food allergies. Food intolerances are totally different. Food intolerance is when you get a milder immune reaction. It's much more difficult sometimes to figure out. And they can range from just feeling just overall malaise, feeling kind of crummy, to stomach upset, heartburn. Some people will get gastro issues like diarrhea or constipation. Constipation is a really common one. Skin issues. Some people will find that if they eat certain foods, that they break out in pimples or maybe even some hives. And so these are what food intolerances can cause. Now, why is this important to know? Well, a food intolerance is still an immune reaction. It's not a strong immune reaction like a food allergy, but it is an immune reaction nonetheless. And when your immune system turns on that way, it can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. It can spike cortisol, inflammatory factors get released, and it can make things harder for you. It can make it more difficult for you to burn body fat, build muscle. If your body's always in this kind of low-level state of constant stress, which is what an immune reaction will cause, or one of these food intolerances can cause. If you're in that constant state of low-level stress, your body doesn't want to necessarily build muscle and burn body fat. Remember, body fat is your body's insurance. It's stored calories in case of starvation. Remember, we evolved for most of human history with scarcity, food scarcity. So having body fat is like a safeguard. If your body feels a little stressed all the time, it's going to make it more difficult for you to lose body fat and build muscle. Remember, the more muscle you add on your body, the more calories you burn. Same thing. It's calories were hard to come by for most of human history. Your body isn't going to want to build muscle unless it feels like it's safe. So if you're in this kind of constant level of low stress through these immune reactions to food intolerances, it's going to make getting to your goals a little bit more difficult. It'll also influence things like your appetite. It may make you crave more foods that make you feel better, hyper-palatable foods. So think about this for a second. When you're really stressed out, do you find that you may crave comfort foods a little bit more? For most of you, that's a yes. Well, if your immune system is in this kind of low-level activation from food intolerances, it may actually trigger you to eat these types of foods. So it can make eating a healthy diet much more difficult. And then, of course, the obvious, you just feel like crap. It's like, why do I feel tired? Why are my energy levels not where they need to be? Why do I feel anxious or edgy? And then the physical symptoms like my skin is bad. I just don't look as good. So let's talk about food intolerances and let's talk about how to identify those. Now, the gold standard, the best way to identify a food intolerance is known as an elimination diet. Really, there's no method that we know of that's better than an elimination diet. And a classic elimination diet is this. You want to eliminate all of the foods that are common, that people commonly have issues with out of your diet, and you want to take them out of your diet completely for at least 30 days. I would say maybe even a little longer, around 45 days. Now, what are those foods? Dairy, wheat products, so products that contain gluten, nuts, and legumes, eggs, and I think that's about it. So it's 5 foods right there you might want to remove. So I know it's a lot of foods, but those are the ones that people commonly have issues with. You also might want to throw in foods that you think you may have issues with. So if you have an inkling and think, I think bananas might bother me, just go ahead and take them out. Remove these foods for about 45 days completely. After 45 days, reintroduce them one at a time. So at the 45-day mark, say, okay, I'm going to reintroduce dairy, and I'm going to eat some dairy for the next few days. And then pay attention to your symptoms. If everything's okay and you feel great, then move on to the next food that you can reintroduce. Now, the problem with elimination testing or diet is that it's a long process. It's a bit of a pain in the butt. And it's kind of guessing at first, right? You're eliminating the common foods that people have issues with, but who knows? To be honest with you, food intolerances can be any food. I've worked with people who've had food intolerances to weird things like spinach and avocado. I had a client once who had a food intolerance to bananas. So a way to kind of give yourself maybe a better start might be to do some at-home IgG antibody testing. Now, these tests aren't perfect. You can show up on these tests to have a high reactivity to some foods. So in other words, the test can say, hey, you might have an intolerance to eggs, and you might find that you don't have an intolerance at all to eggs. Or reverse, you may know for sure that eating eggs bothers you because every time you eat them, you get really bloated and gassy, or maybe you don't feel good. But the test may show that you don't have much IgG reactivity to it at all. So these tests are not perfect. However, I still like to use these tests because they give people a great starting point. If you take one of these tests, you can see what foods you react to according to your IgG antibodies that are found in your blood. You can see what these foods are, eliminate them along with those common foods that I listed earlier, and now you've got a better way to perform a more individualized type of elimination diet. Now, my favorite place to get IgG antibody test, or otherwise known as a food sensitivity test, is Everlywell. Everlywell has a very inexpensive test you can order. You can do it at home. It's real easy to do. Send it in. Online, you'll get a report, and it'll tell you the foods that you'll have high reactivity to. Now, we work with Everlywell. They are one of our sponsors, and we do have a discount code. Just use Mind Pump for a discount on that test and any other test that they have. If you have any questions for this video, put it in the comments below. We'll visit periodically and answer those for you. Also, share this video with any friends you think may benefit from this information, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.